The VIX fell 5% today on a down day. We've had this conversation on the desk, and it's a conversation I've had with different people around the street, which is that hedge funds have been bringing the gross down, which means they've been selling popular longs and they've been covering popular shorts. Some could argue that's part of the reason the market seems like it's broadening. And it also just explains why you actually see volatility going lower. I'm sure one of the option gurus, Dan, here has some views on what it means in terms of volatility. But, you know, to me, look, sentiment and momentum indicators certainly favor that equities have a place to pull back here. You also have a market which doesn't really believe that we're going into recession. There's no way stocks could be pricing in recession here, is my view. And I think that's part of where we are. I just ultimately think it gets back to the market that we have in front of us. And the market we have in front of us today was a day, and I'll oversimplify it. And this isn't right to oversimplify it, but at least until semis start really underperforming Qs or the NASDAQ 100, which really starts to underperform the S&P, then I think the market's going to continue to go higher. Today was a day when semis really underperformed the NASDAQ, which really underperformed the S&P. We haven't had a lot of that. Until that trend changes, I think the market's going to continue to stay high.
Yeah, you know, we were talking on our call earlier today, and an old Fast Money friend, member Larry McDonald, Bear Traps Report, he had a note out talking about the confluence of passive investing, which is something that we've talked a lot about, but then also these zero days to expiration options and how vol dampening that combination has been. But it also sets up for a very difficult sort of environment if everyone heads for the door at one time. We did see that today in a handful of names that have been very popular. You know, Tim just mentioned semis. I know we're going to hit those a bit later. And I guess the thing that's kind of interesting to me is that, you know, in 2023, we've actually almost had the inverse of what we had in 2022. Like, I don't think there were too many days last year where we felt there was too much selling panic. Maybe that day in October, right, where we had that huge down day, new 52-week lows, big reversal, and then we just didn't have a lot of panic in the market. Where did the VIX get its height? You know what I'm saying? So, you know, right now, it seems like we're just lulled to sleep right here. And so it goes back to some of the concentration. Tim just mentioned the broadening out of the market. I think that's something that a lot of bulls have kind of pointed to. I don't really see it. I don't see it in healthcare. I don't see it in energy. I don't see it in financials. I don't see it in a lot of groups right here. So I still see a lot of risk in about 10 names that make up 25% of the S&P 500 and about 50% of the NASDAQ 100. And that continues to actually have risk as it relates to any deceleration in some of the excitement that we've seen around this AI stuff. Mm-hmm. That could be coming to a theater near you when we get Q3 guidance in a month or so.
I can totally see the whole positioning sort of argument. But at the same time, I think Powell sort of really doubled down on some notions that he didn't have to. He didn't have to go to, he's committed to 2% as the target. 2% is a long way from here. Mm-hmm. And if there was ever a hope of some sort of rate cut, I mean, he really twisted the knife in that notion. I mean, it is gone, I think. So he really
twisted
went out.
The knife. Wow, Mel.
I mean, it was sort of dead before, but I mean, now it seems to be really, really dead. Yes. Wednesday, it's yeah, it's certain holidays. Yeah. But you know, I thought he really went to places he didn't have to go. In other words,
I agree. I think part of the pivot, which I mean not pivot, pause, which I actually don't think they needed to do or should have done, was to just all right, we'll just take a little breath here, and we don't need to do anything. He didn't need to say that. I think he could have still been hawkish and say, you know, data will continue to tell us what to do, but it would seem we have a ways to go, something like that. I think we'll see inflation continue to moderate, but we're still really far away from where he needs to be. I do think we're in this lull in the market. We don't really have a ton of earnings news. We don't have a Fed decision yet. Right. We're probably just back and forth for a while until we start to see bank earnings, and that's July 14th, I think JP Morgan starts bank earnings. Then we'll get a sense on not just what banks are doing, but on the economy and what they're seeing. And I actually think it's going to be okay.
So we're in a vacuum, Guy. So what'd you make of today's action?
Being in a vacuum, you know, have you ever turned on that vacuum? I mean, they never smell particularly good, so I personally don't want to be in a vacuum.
It sucks up dirt. What do you expect it to smell like?
Yeah, well, it's an excellent point by you. Today's action makes sense to me. I mean, it makes a lot. You know, Raphael Bostic from the Atlanta Fed, non-voting member, by the way. I mean, he came out, I think it was today, and said, don't expect any cuts for the majority of 2024. I mean, that flies in the face of a lot of what the market's been talking about recently, and I think. Listen, I don't know this. I'm sure Steve has an inkling for sure, but I actually think the Fed is looking at the stock market and is speaking specifically to the stock market when they say, you know, I'm paraphrasing. I'm not sure what you're looking at, but rates are going to stay elevated for a longer period of time, and you guys and gals better wake up to that fact. So the last 3 days clearly make sense to me because I've been bearish for the better part of the year. So we'll see if this continues. But Tim's point about the VIX is spot on. Dan's explanation, spot on as well. Something's got to give here for sure.